Welcome to the 40 Athletes Podcast for yet another great episode. I'm your co-host, Jay Silver, along with my good buddy, Jimmy Huber. Jimmy, what's going on today, man?
Well, we got a little bit of snow. They're going to have a big storm, but I guess just a dusting came through. My son was like, let's make an igloo. I'm like, we can't make an igloo. There's like this much of snow. We can, Daddy. So anyway, a little cold here, but it's all good.
I love his belief, though. You know, you get too much snow, you can start making a big glue, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, actually, we got a snow day today at my school, so that's pretty exciting. But, you know, up north on the other side of Kansas City, man, it's something about the north side, I guess. I don't know. But back to our original episode. So we got a guy here. He was nicknamed the Piñata, that he got hit so many times as a Major League Baseball player.
He's a magnet to the baseball, right?
Magnet, yeah. He played 13 years in the majors, and guess what he did on his first at bat?
I know you're not going to tell me he struck out. He hit a grand slam.
Close. Close. He made a 2-run homer, I think it was. He was like only the 108th player ever to do that. He's actually a Hall of Famer, too. Not in the major leagues, but he's a Hall of Famer.
Wow. That's awesome.
At the University of Virginia.
He's more than Kurt Schilling and Barry Bonds right now, right? He's a Hall of Famer.
That's right. And now he's like a certified nutritionist, mental performance mastery coach. So I was really excited because of his dynamics, his background. And he's also the founder of Fully Equipped Athlete, where they really dive into nutrition and how that connects with your physical performance. So we're going to bring on Brandon Geyer to the show today. Brandon, how's it going?
Great. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Brandon, I have to say this. So Jason's younger than I am, okay? And I said, there's something I got to talk to Brandon about. He played for the Durham Bulls. I mean, Bull Durham, the movie. Kevin Costner, Crash Davidson. He's like, he hadn't even seen the movie, Brandon. He's having me. I was like, what are you talking about? Haven't you seen the movie?
I've heard of it.
What was it like to play at the Durham Bulls? And like, did you ever see the movie and go and experience that? What was that like?
Yeah, and actually there was one game one year we actually went down the road and played at the field that they filmed that movie at, which is really cool. And it was crazy because I think it was right field was super short. So everyone that day, if you're a righty hitter, they're trying to go oppo. If you're a lefty hitter, you're just trying to pull everything. But yeah, just like the history and obviously watching that movie before, then going to play there. It's like a special game. We wore cool uniforms. So yeah, but I knew that before playing with Durham Bulls. And I always say, you know, any minor leaguer I talk to or any college guy, I'm like, man, you get a chance to play at Durham, whether home or on the road. It's like, it's hard to beat all the minor league stadiums. There's some great ones, but it's hard to beat playing for the Durham Bulls. Just the history. You got the Blue Monster there. So it's really cool.
Did you wear a garter belt too? Or did you not, wear one?
No, I decided.
Jason would have to watch the movie to understand that one. So we'll leave it.
I know what you're talking about.
Last second I said, no, I can't do that.
So, Brandon, man, you've had a really you played in some high-pressure situations. You played in the World Series, been with the Indians, been with the Rays, some really successful organizations. But it all goes back to mental health. And you're a mental performance mastery coach. And a lot of times we forget that piece. We focus a lot on the physical, but not as much on the mental, it seems like. And so my question is, like, are mental health and physical health related?
First off, I 100% think so. But going back to what you're saying with the mental health and mental performance, a lot of people say baseball and a lot of sports, 90% mental, maybe more mental. But a lot of times baseball players and other athletes are maybe spending 10% on their mindset. So you're a game that is so mental, but yet we're barely practicing. We're doing probably 90% physical practice. So that's where, and I was guilty until I was, my senior year in high school and read a book called Heads Up Baseball by Ken Ravizza. I was all about the physical side because, it wasn't big back then. And that's all you really hear about is, and it's more fun to do, work on your swing, work out, that kind of stuff. But yeah, the mental side is so important. But then when it comes to physical and mental health, for sure they are related. And what I think it comes down to is, number one, sleep. Sleep is the number one thing to feel good physically and mentally, whether you're an athlete or not. At least getting 8 to 10 hours, prioritizing your sleep, making a good sleep environment, having a good PM routine to, wind down and get ready for a good night's sleep. You want good mental and physical health. Sleep is the number one thing, I believe. And then, physical health. I've seen studies and people talk about, a workout is kind of like taking an antidepressant, what it does for you mentally. So yeah, physically you work out, you take care of yourself, more likely than not, you're going to feel better mentally. And then when it comes to the mindset, those who have less stress going on in their lives, the chances of them having a chronic disease, stuff like that, a lot lower. So I definitely believe that they're related.
So let's go back to sleep real quick. Why is sleep so important? Like, what is it? What is our body doing during sleep that gets us ready, prepared for the next day? And can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So as an athlete, really anyone, it's all about recovery, and your body, especially in like the deep sleep stages, REM sleep. That's when your body's recovering. That's when your body's producing like natural human growth hormone to help your body recover, help you feel great the next day. You'll have more focus, more clarity. Just mentally, you'll feel much better. And when you feel that kind of good, you're going to want to work out and do stuff like that. And you won't have to rely on willpower as much maybe to do the things. So yes, sleep really is everything. And that's why, people who maybe feel like they're sleeping good because they, those who pass out after having a couple beers. If you look at your sleep score, whether it's with a Whoop or any other thing, you'll see you're not getting as much deep sleep. You're not getting as much REM sleep. So you're not going to be nearly as recovered, even though you feel like you're sleeping good. And there have been study after study showing if you compare sleep, good diet, and, a lot of movement, working out, for mental health and performance, sleep always comes out number one as the most important out of those three. So, that says enough right there for athlete or non-athlete, really anybody.
So my next question is like, and everybody might be a little bit different, obviously, like, how do you develop let's go through yourself. What do you do at night to get yourself prepared for a good night's sleep? Like, what's your process? Do you have a shutdown routine with screens? Like, is that all involved? What does that look like?
Yeah, the screens is huge. Basically, a good PM routine where you're getting your body, you're winding down, maybe you're reflecting on the day, if you journal, whatever you do. I'm not saying you have to do that. That's something that I like to do, reflect on the day and, okay, what could I have done better? Okay, do that. Then try to limit the screen time. If you have trouble falling asleep, maybe you take some, a low dose of melatonin. I'm not telling people to do that, but that can help if you have insomnia and it's hard to fall asleep. And no long-term study has really shown that to be, have long-term side effects. So, that's something that I do every now and then. But I think the number one thing is just avoid the screens. And if you look at screens, try to wear like blue light blocking glasses. There's a lot on the market now that can help too. But you just don't want too much stimulus to your brain, because then it's going to be harder to fall asleep. If it's harder to fall asleep, you're definitely going to get less deep sleep and less REM sleep. So it all correlates, and it really comes down to a good PM routine and a good sleep environment. 60 to 68 degrees. I was very fortunate to work with a guy named Chris Winter, who was a sleep coach with the Cleveland Indians, and really taught us so much stuff. And so good sleep environment, keep it pretty cool. And then have, shades that maybe block out light. You can get paper shades on Amazon for like $20. You just hang them up, blocks out light. Maybe a white noise machine. That's very, because little noises during the night could wake you up, but that might cover those so you don't hear them, so you stay asleep, especially if you're in the deeper REM sleep. So little things like that really pay off.
Jimmy, I gotta admit, I gotta get some blue light glasses, because the screen thing for me, I gotta get better at that. Gotta admit.
Well, even like you said, Brandon, if somebody can't get blackout shades, you can almost get, like a covering that you can go over your eyes at night that can block out the light as well. It's really inexpensive, like a sleep mask. The question I have for you is two things. One is, okay, so you said preparation before you go to sleep and off of screen time. Is it 30 minutes before you're getting ready to lay on the pillows and an hour before? What is that time frame? And then my second part of that question is, athletes, you look at like high school kids, junior highs, kids playing club sports. Sometimes they have practices that don't get done until 9:30, and they're getting at home at 10 o'clock at night, and they're maybe got a little homework and they're trying to prepare for the next day. what could you also maybe suggestions you could give to them that are getting home a little bit later and then got to get up early to go to school to make sure they're maximizing the sleep as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, because obviously everyone's different. It's going to be easier for some. You throw kids in the mix and everything, it changes the ball game. So for sure for them, I think if you can just prioritize your time during the day as well as possible, whether that's a good morning routine, good, during the day, really try to maximize your time, because, time's the greatest equalizer. We're all given 24 hours. It's how you use that time. So if you use it smarter during the day, maybe you won't have a ton of stuff at nighttime that's going to affect you going to sleep earlier, maybe. So that's something. But still, even with that, the kids might have long practices and a lot of homework. So what I could say is just do the best you can. Try to get that work done, and then don't stay up. I like to say prioritize feeling good the next day over being entertained for an hour the night before. So if it's a show you want to watch or social media, maybe just cut that out for a half hour and start this process at least a half hour to an hour before you go to bed, so that when you get in bed, you can fall asleep good. And that can be with meditation, just breath work, whatever it is. But just do your best, because obviously everyone's situation is much different. And it's all about trial and error. Just find what really works best for you. And that's pretty much it.
And that's where I've had teams where when we're traveling, we'll take their phones away from them at night, like the kids, and we'll take them. And they'll be like, what are you doing, coach? And be like, well, if you have your phone with you, it's going to be by your bed. You're going to be getting text probably. Things are going to ding, notifications, and it's going to wake you up. You don't get that deep sleep.
Yeah.
And so is that where, like, even if you have your phone, do you recommend individuals to maybe put it on, like airplane mode, or do something to where turn notifications off to where they're not getting woken up by their phone if they feel like they have to have it by them while they sleep? Because like Tom Brady talks about, his phone is in another room. It's not by him, because that affects the sleep as well. What do you tell them about the phone by their bed while they're sleeping?
Yeah, I think that's huge as well. Basically, if you have it by you, I like to compare this to you had your environment. For when I'm talking food with athletes, okay, you have a lot of junk food in your pantry. When you get hungry, if it's there, you're going to go eat it. It's just how it works. But if you have healthy food, obviously it makes it a lot better. But if it's there, you're going to do it. Same with your phone. If it's there, you hear something, you're going to do it. Or, you might just have that urge. Oh, I want to check, people want to check email, social media, all this stuff. But if it's not there, you won't have that urge. So, but what I would say, I keep my phone there just in case family stuff, someone needs to call, whatever. So I set it where certain contacts will come through text or call wise, but besides that, it just kind of goes right to silent. So I don't hear anything. I think it's after 10 o'clock at night and up to like 7 in the morning or something like that. So maybe they want to do that where they just have it there, but it's on silent for everybody except certain people that may need to get in touch with them.
I do want to dive into something you mentioned, and I really want to hit on this. You talk about that we spend about 90% physical training, right? Whether it's strength conditioning, whether it's nutrition, we're eating, speed and agility, whatever it might be. And I think even the youth side is probably 95 to 98% on that side. And it's probably about 2 to maybe 5% on the middle side. But we hear it all the time, like train your mind and the body will follow. The body's an instrument of the mind. So tell me this, what suggestions could you give people kind of on, because the great athletes have routines. The great ones have routines. So what is like mental type mindset routines that you could suggest for athletes that they could use during the day or before a practice or before a game or after a game to settle down from a game? What are some routines that you could suggest they could add to help them be consistent in their performance?
Yeah, for that, it's so important. I think starting off slow and just creating an AM and PM routine, because a lot of times those are the times of the days we have the most control over. So creating a good AM routine to get you going for the day. Personally for me, and it can work, and it works for a lot of athletes. Maybe you wake up, I like an ice cold shower right when I wake up. It's like a cup of coffee, just get you going for the day. And then maybe you do some journaling. Maybe write down, okay, this is what I want to get done today. This is what I have my mindset. All my energy is going towards, being successful and winning the day by completing these tasks. And then maybe you do some breath work or meditation to get you going. And all this can be done within, 15, 20 minutes. And, maybe if you need to wake up earlier to do it because you have kids, or, if you're a young athlete, you have to get to school, then maybe prioritize going to bed a little earlier at night so you can wake up earlier to do these, have a good morning routine. Then I always like to tell them to try to get 12 to 16 ounces of room temperature water in them, and maybe put some Himalayan salt in it for added electrolytes, just to get your digestive system going. And when when you're sleeping at night, you might not notice it or feel it, but you're sweating, you're losing fluids. So you want to start that hydration process right when you wake up, and room temperature water is because you can digest it quicker. So there's more that can go into the morning routine, but I think a morning routine is great. A pregame routine, like you said, whatever gets you right. If it's a certain meal that makes you, and probably talk nutrition and meals later, but a certain meal that makes you, mentally feel ready for the game and you're used to eating it and it makes you feel good, do that. If certain music you listen to, certain warm up you go through, have a good routine before a game. And that's something, when I first got called up to the big leagues, you almost feel like a lot of guys, not robots, but the way they go about their thing, it's the same every single day. And that's one thing that was the biggest difference from the minor leagues to the big leagues is everyone has a set routine that they go through just to help them get through it, because the season's such a grind. So to help you get through it, literally doing the same thing every single day to get you right. And obviously you're going to make minor adjustments based on, if you're struggling at the plate or pitching, make minor adjustments. But for the most part, your routine's pretty much the same. And then a post-game routine, something I really like is no matter how you played that game, have where you write down a couple things that you did really well, even though you went 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts. Okay, what did you do well? Did you make a great play? Were you a great teammate? Whatever is fine. At least a couple things you did really well that game, and then write a couple things down that you feel like you can improve for next time. So that's a good post-game routine. And then nighttime routine, we kind of already talked about that before sleep and everything, but routines are everything. And yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because cannot recommend it enough to start it at an early age, start creating good habits, find your routine through trial and error, what works for you, and it'll set you up for great things.
What do you do? Go back to, you sound like Wim Hof with the cold showers. Like, so walk somebody through how you go, because like, okay, I'm going to take a cold shower. I just don't turn it on freezing cold and then jump in it. What do you do to, like, you start with warm water and then for so long, or you just do it cold and get in for so many seconds? What do you do on kind of this cold shower?
Yeah, I literally just turn the knob very little. But before that, I do like movement stuff. Like I'm moving my head around. I do stretching. My wife walks in the bathroom. She just thinks it's the weirdest thing, but I don't know. It just gets me going. It's all about getting going for the day, because you wake up, you're still kind of tired, but I feel like movement gets you going, and then the cold shower really. So I do the movement and then get in the shower. Really just turn the knob a little bit and get right in, and just as cold as possible. It's tough, but it's like a little stressor. Those little stressors are really good for you. So standing in there 2 to 5 minutes, it's tough, but it's like a mental challenge too. Like physically it gets you going, but mentally you get through it. You're like, and you're ready to go for the game or for the day. Before a game is great too. So that's kind of how I go about it.
My wife tells me to stop screaming in the shower when I do that. She's told me to quit.
You do it too?
Yeah, do that. Hey, the other thing I want to ask you, and then Jason's going to get into something, is so you talked about breath work. You talked about what suggestions can you give to individuals about breath work? What type of maybe breathing exercise you do that's been beneficial that you can suggest to other people that they can implement in their own lives?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And to show you how important breathing was for me, I don't know, have you guys heard of Ken Ravizza? He wrote Heads Up Baseball. Mm-hmm. So that book single-handedly changed my career after reading it. So long story short, first 3 years in high school, very average baseball player, was going to play football in college. I hit 270 as a junior in high school, set on playing football, and then read Heads Up Baseball after that year, changed everything, because I finally worked on what I like to call the sixth tool, which is the mindset. Because before that, I just relied on my physical skills, and, you can only get so far with that. And so then I got that mindset and read that, starting in that book, really focused on my breath and then work. I was so fortunate he was the sports psychologist for the Tampa Bay Rays my first 2 years with the Rays. And unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. Rest in peace, Ken. But what he taught me was breathing, specifically every single pitch. And it was so important. I had a wristband made where I had the guy stitch breathe in it because literally during a game, before every pitch, look at it, take a deep breath. If I'm in the outfield, especially in the World Series, a lot of nerve stuff like that, the breath can help you reset, refocus, lower your heart rate. It really is an amazing tool that I don't feel like enough athletes use. So very fortunate for Ken to work with him, and he taught me that. But yeah, breathing for breath work. Something I like to do is just lay down, and I think of to start out, just think of a box. So inhale for, start with 3 seconds. 3 second inhale, hold it for 3 seconds. Exhale for 3 seconds, hold it for 3 seconds, and just kind of do that box. Maybe just do it 5 times. Do that for a week, once a day. Right now, I'm up to, they say it's what the Navy SEALs do before they go into battle. They do 8, 8, 8, 8. So I do that, and I kind of just change it up. Really try to get the exhale every time to be a little longer than the inhale. So that's like before the game and everyday life. But during the game, you really want to focus when you're breathing. And if you do a test and just put one hand on your chest, one hand on your diaphragm, when you take that deep breath, your hand on your stomach, your diaphragm should move, not the chest. And a lot of young athletes, especially since I've been working with since I retired, the hand on their chest moves. And that's what a lot of you call shallow breathing. So we want to be deep breathers because you're going to get more oxygen into your brain, to your muscles. That's what's going to help you relax. So during the game, after every pitch, step out. If you want to hold up your bat or whatever you do, full in, full out using your stomach. You can do that on the pitching mound. You can do it. And a lot of people watching games now, more and more people are starting to do it. The power of the breath is, a lot of elite athletes realize it. That's really how you go about it during the game. You can do it in the outfield. Like I said, in the World Series, this was amazing. Everything. I would start to get that anxiety, those nerves come in. I would just simply look down, touch it. It would remind me to take that deep breath, because in stressful, tough situations, a lot of times people forget to breathe or breathe shallow. And that makes it changes everything physiologically. So that's really
Have you read the book by James Nestor, Breathe?
Yeah.
Have you ever read it?
Got it right here.
Oh, got it. And
game changer, man.
It's an awesome book. And it's funny he was saying when he was telling his friends that were, writers and that, I'm going to write a book about breathing. Like, book about breathing? They're like laughing about it. But the research he did about breathing, how it affects the body. But a question I have for you on it, he talks about, we're taught, you can breathe through the mouth. He says breathing through the nose, inhale and exhale through the nose instead of exhaling through your mouth, because that causes, talks about like our face to go in and all these type of stuff for bone structure to damage it. What's your thoughts on that, on breathing and inhale and exhale through the nose or through the mouth? Because you'll hear, Wim Hof say, just breathe. Doesn't matter how you breathe, just breathe. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with James. I think the most efficient way is in through the nose, out through the mouth or nose. I don't think exhale is as important. I think inhale you want to do through the nose. And actually, after reading his book and hearing him on the Joe Rogan podcast, he talked about taping your mouth shut at night and just breathing out of your nose. And I started doing that, although I was freaked out. My wife didn't want me to. She's like, what if you just don't breathe? Because, I have a deviated septum. And so, so I was just like, I'm going to give it a try. And oh my gosh, my deep sleep, my REM sleep, my sleep scores, my recovery is so much better now, because every night I sleep with tape over my mouth. Because before that, not everyone is a mouth breather, but I would breathe out of my mouth. I would wake up my mouth's dry. I just sleeping with tape on your mouth. If you do breathe out of your mouth, or even if you breathe normal, it can change and make for a really good night's sleep. So I agree with everything he says, man. That book can change a lot of people's lives. So I hope a lot of people read it.
And so, you mentioned playing in the World Series, and I I was a big Indians fan that year. So I mean, I was hoping you all would pull it out for multiple reasons. But you're up there against Aroldis Chapman. End of game, like in the game scenario, game 7. I think it was game 7, and you rope a double in right center field. Like, you take us through, like, how did you stay calm? Like, what the breath work? What were you thinking? Staying poised in pressure situations. A lot of times people fold, but you were up there like it was just another at bat. Take us through that process?
Yeah, for that, I appreciate that. For that, it really came down to the work before the game, I feel like, and more specifically, visualization. Visualization is such a powerful tool. And when I talk to athletes now about visualization, I show them that picture of me hitting that ball off Chapman, because I said, guys, that was the biggest at bat of my career. But it felt like an at bat I was in the backyard with my boys when I was young playing wiffle ball, meaning I was so comfortable, because I had visualized that at bat hundreds of times in my head. And so when I got up there, I was in that situation, it literally felt like I'd been there so many times. And so I got down 0-2 or 1-2, forget what it was. And I was like, okay, I've been here, step out, take my deep breath. Then I would, stay short to the ball, stay on top of the ball, because this ball kind of rises a little bit. You want to be short because it's coming in so hot at you. So those were the cues I had in my head. That's what I did every pitch, and that's what I did in my head before the game. And obviously that doesn't mean you're going to have success, but that means you're going to put yourself in the best position to have success. And as an athlete, I think that's what we should be doing, because we can't ever guarantee anything. A lot of times results obviously are out of our control, but if you put yourself in the best position to succeed, that's the name of the game. So visualization helped there, breath work in between or just breathing properly in between the pitches, those two things. And then, in the outfield, like I said earlier, focusing on breathing, and then having in-game routines. Something I really liked it's called flush it. So I would literally, for instance, if I'm in the outfield and I make an error because runner's on second and ground ball hits me, I'm trying to throw him out. I just come in running out of control, ball goes under my glove. Okay, first learn from it. What did I do wrong? I ran in out of control. Next time, I got to set my feet, go in under control. Okay, I learned what I could from that failure. Flush it. I literally think of a toilet and flush it. It's gone forever. And then I say to myself, okay, what's important now? What's the next best decision? And I'd like to say, hit the ball to me. And when I was younger, I did this too. I'd make an error, have like anxiety going on. I'd be like, oh God, I hope the ball's not hit to me. I hope it's not hit to me. But then, so that flush it, you say, hit the ball to me. You cut that attack mentality, hit it to me. So things like that, having in-game routines, that really helps with everything.
Yeah, like in baseball, they always say, you make an error, the ball tends to find you again, right? So it's like more times than not, especially in your head, how our mind works. It's like, oh, don't hit it to me. Oh, don't hit it to me. And what you're saying hit it to me anyways, because, as your mind doesn't know what don't is, do and do not are irrelevant. So that's key right there. And you mentioned visualization, and visualization can be like, something that, is everybody has maybe a different definition of it, but can you develop like how to be a better person that can visualize things? Is that a skill that can be developed?
I think so, for sure. So last night in person at our facility, I do mental skills clinics, and I like to, at the beginning, run them for visualization. And a couple of new kids were in the class, and I did it. And afterwards, I like to ask them, okay, tell me about the at-bat you just visualized. And, the first time doing it, it's kind of weird. They don't, maybe don't use all their senses to make it as real and as vivid as possible, because that's how you get the most out of it. So you're right. Like, it can take a couple times, but the more you do it, and, a lot of times people, it's great to recall past great performances you had, past big hits you had, and also visualize success in the future. But what I feel like a lot of people don't do enough is practice facing adversity. And this can be, all right, what are you going to do? Visualize you're on the mound. You just walk 2 batters. You're losing control. You're spiraling out of control. You need to focus. What are you going to do then? So visualize yourself maybe stepping off the mound, turning around, taking that deep breath, maybe tying your shoelace, whatever will get you right. And obviously it's going to take reps in a game to do it, but you want to practice facing adversity, practice making an error and how you're going to react, what you're going to say to yourself, what your routine is. Practice if you have a big presentation in class, if you asking a girl out for the first time. I remember my first time asking a girl out, I was so nervous, but I didn't know about visualization back then. I wish I did, because now you can literally go through it in your head hundreds of times. So you go do it, you'll know exactly what to say. Doesn't mean she might not say yes, but you can practice adversity, how you're going to handle it if she says no, whatever. No, but it's just amazing because you feel like you've been there before when you go over it in your head. And the cool thing is, study after study has shown through the brain, it's the same thing as doing something physical. Mm-hmm. So that's a game changer right there. You can do all the physical reps, then you do it mentally too. That's how you acquire skills a lot faster.
I like how you mentioned like visualizing it whenever you hit adversity, because I think a lot of times there's a misperception of like, oh, you visualize like this utopian situation of things going just perfectly. And the reality of it is, like, so many things are out of your control. So visualizing, like you mentioned, when things seem to be like a little bit stressful or out of your control can really help you, because you feel like, again, you've been there before. And for myself, I know, like, whenever I started visualization, I always visualize like, oh, my day's just going to go like smooth and perfect. And when it didn't, I was like, this doesn't work. But I was like, it was just a shift in how I visualized. And so, I think that's a key thing that most people don't realize about visualization is like you mentioned, visualizing through adversity too.
Can you hear Brandon?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah. No, yeah. You're spot on, man. Just practice that adversity, because when it does happen, just so you know how to handle it.
Well, going back to what you said too, Brandon, like Stanford did a study where they did basketball players. They had a group, B group, and a C group. The A group they shot no free throws physically. They did no visualization. The B group shot a certain amount of free throws each day physically, no visualization. And then group C, all they did was visualize. They didn't physically shoot it. Group A made like no improvement whatsoever. I think it was group B that physically shot. It was like 27% increase. And group B that just visualized. They didn't do physically any type of reps. It was like 25%. It was only 2% difference, just 2%. Pretty amazing.
It's crazy. And a story that might rival that, and I don't know that it's not, I might be off a little bit, but I think it was a guy who was in the not the Holocaust camps, or one of those camps back in the day. And they said, okay, how did you get through it? He said, I visualized golfing 18 holes or more than that every single day. And then when he got out of it, he went and he golfed his best round ever. And he hadn't picked up a club in forever, but he simply visualized doing it each and every day. And then he went out and shot his best round. So yeah, the power of visualization is real.
The other thing I love too, you mentioned about flushing a mistake. Because the other day in practice, I'm glad you said this, because my kids watch this. I was telling them about flushing the toilet, about making mistakes, getting the poo-poo to go down, the crap to go down, out of it. And they're laughing at me, but now Brandon Geyer says they'll probably be, hey, this is cool. But what I like what you did is not only flush it, but now we're going to be proactive. We're going to take action toward it. Hit it to me, or give me that next pass. I'm going to hit this shot. I like that.
Yeah. And so that really comes down to being able to handle failure. And obviously, as baseball players, there's so much failure in the sport. And simply, I believe the players in the big leagues are just the best at failing. They know how to utilize it. They know how to handle it. They know how to use it as fuel. So yeah, being able to fail, because you're going to, especially maybe you don't a lot, but then as you keep going up the levels of competition and the talent gap gets smaller, you're going to fail. So it's just really being able to utilize it and use it as fuel.
So let's get into the nutrition side of it. Like, they always talk about you can work out. Most people work out physically, and they think that's the biggest thing. They talk about like nutrition, what you eat and what you drink is more important than sometimes your exercise. So what do you tell athletes, like what they should be eating or drinking, or nutritional plan that can set them up for having success when they're, practicing or playing, in games?
Yeah. So first off, I just try to tell them to try to master the fundamentals. I always like to say basics are best, especially someone who maybe hadn't been eating necessarily healthy for a majority of their life. If you just try to throw a meal plan out at them and, eat this, eat that, this is not sustainable. It's not going to work, So I just think keep it simple at first and do your best to eat as much real food as possible. and as little processed food, and try not to drink your sugars. So those are like the two main things. If you can do that, eat more real food, less processed food, and try not to drink sugars like juice, soda, even Gatorade, stuff like that. It's good when you have a lot of competitions for the electrolytes, but if you can avoid it, they're just so much high sugar. So I think that's the number one thing. And then kind of off that, it's just about behavioral change and creating new habits. So taking it slow, maybe one day or each day of the week, you just change your breakfast. Instead of cereal, you have a good bowl of oatmeal. Then the next week, maybe you add in a good lunch as well with that, and just take it slowly and gradually until you build those habits and get that self-discipline and really make your environment great, because the environment is huge. What you have in your pantry, what you have in your fridge, that is a game changer too. So really try to start off with those two things first.
What would be a good lunch when you say good lunch? Like if you're telling somebody, hey, here's some things to think about you could eat for lunch that would be good for your body.
There's so many good things. Man, to keep it simple, I like to just say switch up protein, carbohydrate, fat, and add some vegetables. So for protein, I'll just say like grilled chicken breast. Carbohydrate, I'll say sweet potato, really good. For healthy fat, I like that avocado, sliced avocado with the chicken. And then for vegetable, maybe just some carrots on the side if you have them. So that's a simple lunch. And yeah, for any athletes out there listening, just try to keep it simple and think protein, carb, fat, healthy fat, and what veggie you can add to it, and just kind of do that for every meal, and just kind of rotate those macronutrients, protein, carbohydrate, and fat.
What do you suggest before, say, a practice, before a game? Like what should they be eating, drinking? Say it's, an hour or 2 hours before they're getting ready to perform. What do you suggest they should do there?
Yeah, so our bodies thrive on carbohydrates. I know there's keto diet out there, which works for some people, but the majority of people, especially athletes, if you're playing every day, like a long, grueling baseball season, to sustain a ketogenic diet, which for all those listening might not know, it's just basically a high fat diet, low carb diet. So your body's burning fat for energy instead of carbs. But I like to say for a pregame meal, get a good amount of carbohydrates in. If that's a bowl of oatmeal, if it's some rice, and then you add some good quality protein to it. Maybe the fat not go as high with that. Maybe just like a little thing of peanut butter, because our bodies take a while to digest that fat, and it could go into a competition feeling kind of stuffed and make you feel sluggish. So I would just say focus on hydration, getting good water in with some electrolytes, and good amount of carbohydrates, and good protein and fat sources.
You hear after games anymore, like you see the NBA teams and, traveling from city to city. And I know COVID's different right now, but they would have, cold pressed juices, or they formulate kind of a plan for the athlete. They know this is what we're going to feed them after the game to get them ready for recovery. What are suggestions you could give to individuals? I know they can't maybe be as specialized as an NBA type program, but what could they do to be like, okay, here's some tips after game you could do, nutrition, hydration, to prepare you for the next day to be ready to go?
Yeah, that's a great point. And if you're not someone who likes a big meal before or after a game, find a good smoothie or shake that you enjoy. If it's maybe a little scoop of good quality whey protein or whatever protein powder, depending on your age. And when I say this stuff, it's generally, obviously it's not for every single person. So I'm just saying generally what I would recommend based on the person, because everyone's body handles certain food, has different intolerances, can digest certain foods. So generally I would say, maybe have a good shake with some like spinach mixed into it, or a greens powder, maybe a little thing of peanut butter, some frozen fruit or some regular fruit in there. You're really kind of getting all the nutrients that you need for your body to fuel up, and after the game to help you recover. And after the game, it should all be all about recovery. And that's where carbohydrates come in, because, especially if it's a long game or a long grueling workout, you're depleting your carbohydrates, and you got to replenish them, replenish your, what they call glycogen stores. And that's what you do. We're getting a good amount of carbohydrates in post game. And post game, I would say, is very similar. Find what foods you like first and your body digests and handles well, and then just get good quality fat, protein, carb afterwards, leaning more towards the carbohydrates and protein to really help you recover. The protein help your body recover and build and repair your muscle. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, and now we dive into the last part of the show, and it's the 4 questions with 40 athletes. So our first one is this. It's what is the best life lesson that sports has taught you?
If I had to pick one, I would say failure is a part of success. I know we talked about failure earlier, but if you want to be successful, know you're going to fail. All of the greats have failed, and it's really how you handle it. So if I could pick one thing, it's failure, being able to learn from it, and realizing you have to be willing to fail big and to get, a high and, really get to wherever you want to go. It's like stepping into a box. You got to be willing to strike out in a big situation, if you want to hit the game-winning hit in that situation, so if you're not willing to strike out, that means you might not put yourself in that situation to even do it. Then you can't even get that big walk-off hit and whatever. So failure is a part of success is probably number one.
I love that, but what do you do? Being an athlete, professional athlete, social media and everything going on, and you don't play well, you make mistakes, and people start saying negative things about you. Oh, Brandon stinks. He's like all these negative, right? And kids see this. And so what suggestion do you give? Because you get that inner voice saying you aren't any good. You suck. You should quit. Give up. Mm-hmm. What tips can you give individuals to stay strong and to know that, hey, this failure is an opportunity for you to grow. I'm not going to listen to this. I'm going to keep moving forward. What tips can you give people to keep pressing forward for their goals?
Yeah, first I would say try to avoid social media as much as you can. I know it's such a big thing nowadays, especially the younger age groups. But, when I played, I avoided it as much as I could. I had one time when I was a rookie with the Tampa Bay Rays, I made a huge error we ended up losing the game because of it. And man, it's not even the biggest it's a great fan base, not the biggest fan base. So this is in Tampa Bay. I got messages on Twitter. I don't need to go into detail. They're like, hope you get in a car accident. Like, it was some of the craziest things I've ever heard. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So since then I just avoided it, so number one thing I would say, avoid social media. And with failure, just know it's going to happen. It's going to happen to everybody. So that maybe should help you mentally know when it's going to happen. And then, use it as fuel, learn from it. And then, just utilize it, because you're going to grow from it. You need failure in order to find out what you need to change in order to grow. So hopefully looking at it that way could help them.
Yeah. Number 2 here, we got, if you could spend time with anyone you admire in sports, either alive or passed away, who would it be, and why would you pick him?
Yeah, so I would probably go, there's so many people. I would probably go right now with Conor McGregor. And mainly because, I'm really into the mindset, stuff like that. His mindset, obviously he got knocked out last weekend, but what he's done and how he handles failure, how he handles losing. He talks a big game, talks trash, even though he didn't talk as much trash as he usually does last week. But even before, when he loses, he handles it in a good way. He doesn't shy away. He congratulates the other person. So that's a guy, just his whole mindset. I know he's huge into visualization, and I'm sure, man, I'm sure everyone could learn something from him. Because simply, yeah, he's physically talented, but his mind is what's gotten him everything that he has in his life. So I'd probably go with him.
You wouldn't have known he got knocked out. The next, when he was interviewed after the next, talking about who he wants next and who he's going after, it was usually I get defeated like that. I'm moping, I'm down. I'm like, maybe this isn't for me. I thought he won the next day when I saw it, and I was like, oh, he got knocked out. I was like, it is amazing how he kind of responds in a way that he just continues to be a champion, even though the results physically didn't prove that he was that night.
Yeah, he just got knocked out, so he's probably not even thinking straight, but he still was able to act with class. And, I hope a lot of young athletes saw that, like, you're going to fail. It's just how you handle it. And because of how he handles it, I guarantee he'll get back on the bike quicker, and he'll be back better than ever because of his mindset.
Question number 3 is this: what's the best advice you've ever received from a coach you played for, you've been around, worked for? What is the best advice they've given you?
Man, there's so much good advice. I would say the number one thing would have to be, he was my coach when I was younger, but only for a couple of years. It was my dad. It was what he told me when I was really young. He said, whenever he would see me, when I was young, being lazy and not doing anything productive, he would tell me, because there were set guys. He knew I wanted to be great and be good. He'd say, "Oh, this guy's out there working. I guarantee you he's hitting off a tee right now in his basement, or he's out there working out." So he would always tell me, there's someone out there working when you're sitting here playing video games, or you're sitting here watching TV. And of course, it was annoying, and I wanted to be a kid. And literally, since it took a couple times for him to say, then after that, I was like, okay, this is, if I want to be really good, I got to always think, no matter what I'm doing, there's someone out there doing something. So to this day, even though I'm not playing anymore, it's like, okay, someone out there who's in the same line of work, although I'm not competing with them, it's like, okay, I want to make sure I'm as good as I can be, so I can help the athletes as much as possible. So, I'm sitting around looking at social media or something, which I try to avoid as much as possible. Every day, my number one goal is less screen time, more presence. I think that's the best gift you can give to anyone, especially family. So I really try to do that as much as I can. And so, long story short, it's my dad giving me that advice when I was little, stuck with me forever.
I love that, being present. By the way, is your dad like to the right of you? Because when you said that, I thought you turned like.
No, one of my kids walked by, and somehow
dad's here, man. You better get to work. Hey,
yeah.
The last question is this: if there's one character trait, life skill that you had to have in, say, an athlete that you were coaching, and you'd want one for them and your team to be successful, what would it be?
Grit. I think someone who has grit, someone who, has passion and for going after what they want, but they know, when obstacles come up, they're able to persevere and push through it, and do things that they might not want to do in the moment, but they do it anyways, because they know it's going to get them closer to what they're after. So I'd say number one thing is someone just having that grit about them.
Well, Brandon, thank you, man, for coming on the show today. How can people, learn more about you? Where can they find you on the internet and online, social media? I know you mentioned, you try to stay away from screen time, but again, that's kind of especially with COVID. But how can people learn more about what you do?
Exactly.
Or website or social media, or where can they find you?
Yeah, so website is fullyequippedathlete.com. Instagram, anywhere else, fully equipped at fully equipped athlete. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I mean, I feel like we have a very similar vision. You're trying to help athletes, and what you guys are doing is inspiring. So I think we have the same mission. So what I'm doing is what you're doing, and it's just helping as many athletes as we can be as good as they can, mentally and physically. So yeah, thank you.
Brandon, man, we look forward to continuing conversations with you in the future, man, and continue to grow fully equipped athletes, man. Thank you for all you do, because it takes a group of us in the same space to make a difference, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Brandon, for your time.
Definitely.
Excellent information. Thank you.
And if you're looking to transform your athletes, teams, organizations by teaching essential life skills, go to our 40 Athletes website at 40athletes.com. There you can enroll in our course, or you can book a discovery call, and we can show you how, for less than $1 a day per athlete, you can transform the lives of not only your kids, your athletes, but your parents and your coaches as well. Thanks for tuning in for this week's edition of 40 Athletes Live podcast. We'll see you again next week.
Dad.